out, when are our next steps proposed, what are those next steps, and who would need to be involved, and that sort of thing. So we didn't just kind of leave it hanging out there, try to provide a little bit more context. All right, so yeah, I consulted with Jim, and we kind of came up with, I think it was 10 or 11 that we wanted to focus on tonight in terms of recommendations. So like I said, when you go to the specific page for them, you'll see usually something that looks like this, kind of a broader description, some images, there's a table containing information. Then at the bottom, we try to identify which of the goals of the plan and identify who are some of the involved entities, time frame, relative costs. We describe what we mean by kind of low cost versus high cost in there, and maybe some potential funding sources. So the recommendation, 1A for adding or improving signage, this is probably the thing we heard about most in the process, was the need for better signage. I think there's both in terms of specific signs for a specific public parking area, and also for the need for kind of as you're coming into town, maybe some sort of gateway type sign that will help you orient. So if you look at that picture on the right there, that says you drive into Hanover. It basically describes that up ahead there's options for 2-day or for 2-hour and all-day parking. So something like that potentially as you come into Main Street. But we in the table there basically identify the locations where there could benefit from additional signage. If there is current signage at all, and a little more detail about what we think would be most appropriate to each of those.
And just as an add to that, in some locations the parking lot may be full. You get to the end of the parking lot and say, okay, where do I go now? Pretty much everyone in the room knows where to go, but this is for informing visitors where there's additional capacity elsewhere.
And to that end, when you think about visitors, especially everybody using GPS now, has there been an investigation of how to get, on your GPS, those parking things come up all the time. You need to get that data to Google or whomever that is.
Andrew's done some good work too. You go on Google Maps now, I think almost all or all the parking lots. All the parking lots in town, there is a little pin on there saying public parking.
Okay, good.
Does it show up if you search it on your phone?
That's a good question.
I just want to make sure someone's paying attention.
Yeah, we get into that a little bit in the next recommendation. But yeah, I think that this is, Jim mentioned this briefly, it seems that residents in a lot of cases know where to go, but it's really the visitors and customers where, they come in and they're kind of circling around and get confused and that sort of thing. So.
Maybe parking someplace where they shouldn't just because they have no other option.
Yeah.
Or think they don't.
All right, any questions on that? Like I said, a lot more detailed information contained within each of these. And if you want to go on to the next page, 1B. So 1B is to provide improved educational materials regarding public parking through a variety of channels. So this is where, what you were just talking about is an example of a good opportunity. I think there's an opportunity to provide improved online resources related to parking. So developing a standard, clear public parking map. So the police department has kind of pulled together a map that's on their website, but it's a little bit, I think, there's opportunity to do something a little better. And not only providing that information on the town website, but encouraging businesses, if they have a website, to describe what the public parking options are. And even working with the Chamber of Commerce. There's a lot of different potential informational channels out there, both online. Even thinking about some print resources, getting creative with, someone had the idea of putting a map on a placemat at a restaurant or something like that has attractions and parking locations and so.
There's other maps that are just in town, not all of them. If you're in town, you've got this map, you've already parked.
Right.
But having something like this could really be available.
But I think the online resources are going to be most important because, to Jim's point, if you're holding a paper map, it means you already parked your car.
Hopefully.
But we see that as being very important as well. So that paired with the signage should really help with that common concern we heard a lot about visitors and customers not knowing where the parking opportunities are. All right, so that was in kind of our, what we call objective 1. So this is how do we better promote what the available public parking resources are. I'm going to highlight a couple under objective 2. I'm going to go to 2B.
What about 1C, pursuing a branding effort to promote park and walk experience in downtown?
Yeah.
Could that be combined with identifying the
Absolutely.
different parking spaces?
I remember one thing we did when I worked for the chamber years ago. We kind of made, like, the chamber had their Main Street of the Mountains logo, and then like no one could find the covered bridge. So on the side of Dave Harkless's building, we actually had like a covered bridge, and then it was like an outline. And actually, I think they may still have another one where we had like a question mark, the international question mark, but in that same format. And I never got around to it, but I always wanted to do that with parking. And then you had to work, you know what I mean? Like, so you've got like a branded information. It's not just
Yeah.
parking, but it's information. Where do we, you know, so if it's a kiosk or something else, people know what to look for.
Yeah, this is one we see, you know, there's a good arts and culture community in Littleton. Yeah, you've got the chamber, you've got the Cultural Arts Commission. There's a lot of kind of folks who could get together on this and think of something creative. So that was, an idea we had. So objective 2 is regarding just strategies for expanding the supply of available parking. And if you go to 2B, this is the one we want to highlight. So this is one where, you know, we think particularly for this lot, but also with potentially some of the other public parking lots in town, there might be an opportunity to do some reconfiguration.
This is behind it too.
So basically, you know, if you can kind of control the access a little better, think about using angled parking, one-way travel aisles, that sort of thing. In some cases, we're not sure, you know, we didn't quite have the capacity to do a full engineering type study on this, but there may be opportunities to do something like apply this concept in other places and apply it if the town does, you know, end up constructing additional parking at some point. How to use best, you know, utilize that available space. So this is an example on the Pleasant Street parking lot. You know, this is just a kind of a planning level concept. You have to do the engineering on this to make sure that you could do something like this. But it's just kind of an example of how you could add a decent amount of parking kind of almost in the existing footprint of what's already out there potentially. Go to 2C, Andrew.
So, I'm sorry, before we leave this one?
Yeah.
So what are the next steps to pursue this further?
So I think this is something that with the CMAQ application that the town put together, that would support doing this type of work in this parking lot. And then I think it's as you know, if you're gonna plan to do a resurfacing of a lot as part of regular maintenance, that would be the time where you look at reconfiguration. So I think it will come up. I met with Doug Gamco about the 5-year road plan and how some of these might get carried out into a 5-year road budget. So thinking about but sequencing those logically, you know, you wouldn't necessarily go in and resurface just to do this, but if it's time to address the surface condition or to reconstruct and address drainage and that sort of thing, that'd be kind of the opportunity. So 2C, these are strategies the town can use to, again, kind of better utilize what's already out there in terms of pursuing shared use parking agreements. So that can take the form of the town leasing additional parking from a private landowner, or it can be the town working with 2 or more adjacent businesses to encourage them to basically, you know, share resources in terms of parking. And so I think one thing we particularly saw is a lot of the privately owned parking in town, even in the highest demand areas of Main Street, is relatively underutilized. So to the extent where multiple customers from different businesses could share a single parking lot, or if there's an opportunity to have public parking either during after business hours or times of day where they're like, hey, we're just not very busy, that feels like a low-hanging fruit opportunity where you get some additional capacity without spending a whole lot of money or constructing new infrastructure.
Did the study find that there was a parking issue after business hours? Doesn't seem like, I don't seem to experience that.
No, I think you do see you kind of see a little lull in like late afternoon and then maybe a little bit of an uptick on like weekend evenings when folks are coming in for dinner. And
There are spots. It's certain locations at certain times.
Yeah,
Mill
it's like-
Street, that end
Yeah,
of Main Street.
and Street, yeah, and that seems to stay pretty busy even into the evening.
And where the overnight parking runs into conflict is snow removal winter. So if they didn't have snow, we could have parking, they could be in those parking spots for a while.
Did you have any comments on the fact that Littleton's very unique because our main street is pretty flat, but on either side we've got funky hills.
Yeah.
Did anybody mention that, or I mean, not that we can do anything about it,
Yeah,
but
that was mentioned in terms, I think in particular, specifically in regards to the public parking lot that's on Clay Street. Because yeah, that's already kind of a little bit of a hike for folks, and then in the winter, there's no sidewalk, and so you're kind of walking the road, and if it hasn't been, it's slippery, it hasn't been salted or whatever. So we did make a recommendation to at least provide some sort of dedicated pedestrian way up there, and to, kind of think about how you can target winter maintenance activities to make sure that folks you're not limiting the use of that infrastructure.
While this was going on, Clay Street was added to the, it's one of the ones, like in your recommendation, for example, to lease private lots. So currently Clay Street, the one behind Mascoma Bank, this parking lot here, are all under, the private that are in lease for public use. So we're making some progress there.
Yeah, and it's more of the expansion of the lease process or the agreement process between the town and the landowner.
And we saw a great example of this with the new parking down on Saranac Street, where that parking there's some parking shared between the bank and the public, and it's during bank hours from here over bank only, and then available to the general public. So that's kind of a model that we applied for. We didn't want to name any specific businesses in here, but we did think there was an opportunity to move forward with that.
And I noticed Mascoma has changed its parking sign. It used to say no parking there, and now it says no parking during business hours. Thank you very much.
Next one, 2F. So this is one we talked about a lot. It's one that we'll have to we'll be following up with the planning board about. But we did have representatives from the zoning board and planning board on the commission. And one thing we did hear, particularly from Jim and on the zoning board side, is that not having any kind of requirements related to parking spaces for a business can be a challenge. And it is potentially contributing to what we see as increasing demand in public parking facilities. So if there's an opportunity to move forward in a way where you can develop some kind of flexible requirements that is not overly burdensome on any applicants, but that does ensure that if you are generating additional parking demand, that is mitigated to some degree, either by making sure that parking is provided on site, or potentially paying into a fund to support additional public parking improvements. And in the table, we have a whole list of strategies about how this can be done, potentially without, getting anything that's too burdensome or too, kind of out of character with what the town's been trying to do traditionally with regards to land use regulations. So thinking about, thresholds, so only, certain business developments of a certain size or certain types of uses would be subject to requirements, impact fees. So instead of having to build and maintain parking infrastructure, you just make a one-time payment to the town. These are some different strategies that you could look at. So this is timely in that the planning board is working on updating the town master plan. In order to do any changes to the zone, you would have to support those with the master plan. So, but we see this is another one that is going to require a lot more community conversation with businesses, land use boards, and others. So we didn't want to go and just make a broad blanket statement recommendation that this is something the town should do. Is that this is an idea we're pursuing in collaboration with the right folks.
I'd like to comment.
And at one point, we had regulations in town. Maybe they weren't flexible enough. That could be a question to ask. But sooner or later, somebody has to pay for the parking. It's either the developer or the town. So as a community, we have to decide, is it one or the other, or is it a little bit both?
My concern too is with Littleton growing like it is, would be residential development. growing. More people are converting their homes into apartments, and quite often, most people live in cars. If it's a gal, they each have a car. Whoever's building rehabilitating the building needs to consider parking, limiting it to maybe one individual or whatever. I don't know if that's going to happen through planning or zoning, but it's something that needs to be talked about.
Next one is 2I, park at the Opera House. This is one that we talked about a lot and went back and revised multiple times. A lot of competing demand for that parking there in terms of Opera House events, Opera House staff, museum volunteers, businesses on Union Street, tenants on Union Street, general public. There's quite a bit. And you met directly with Opera House staff, we talked with business owners on Union Street, and came up with what we saw as a potential way forward. And kind of the vision, what we see for this, it is right in the vicinity of where there is a lot of demand for parking. And so to the extent where it can be used for general public parking, that's a benefit. The concern is, having that lot full when people are trying to go in for an Opera House event, and long-term parking where really nobody's able to use it because it can fill up relatively quickly. So what we wanted to look at was 2-hour time restriction during business hours so that that lot will continue to turn over, and that's going to be beneficial for the Union Street businesses. If that's successful and it seems like it's working, eventually you can look at metering it, and that's going to help with that and making sure that that turnover happens. As part of a parking district program, which we'll talk about in a little bit, you could allow overnight parking with a permit, and so that would help with, there's just a lot of tenants on Union Street that don't have parking currently, so that's provided with a place to park overnight. And to allow the Opera House to do what it needs to do, they could reserve spaces for events and staff as needed. So if you have meters, you can bag the meters. You can put up signs saying Opera House event, Opera House parking only. I think this is one that might need to get workshopped a little bit as it rolls forward. Make sure that it's working in the way that we think it would be. But it seemed like a good compromise in order to be able to satisfy the competing needs for the folks that are looking at that, using that lot.
And do you talk more generally about the permitting?
Yes. Yep.
I'm looking at that and thinking, that seems like in direct opposition to what we're trying to accomplish there is to have overnight parking, even permitted overnight parking, because, it's going to take the space, and I don't know if the car's going to move the next day. It's going to be there the next day.
Well, if you have the 2-hour time restriction, then, at some point they'd have to.
So even if they're permitted, that would still apply?
I would just say it's just, it's for overnight, and, you gotta take your car out of there and drive to work the next day.
So you'd be able to put what requirements you wanted, and they'd have to sign some documents saying, so if there's an event, they could be notified, for example, if you had all the lots labeled A, B, C, D, E, if say E is the Opera House, you could send out a notice, all people who are parking lot E tonight park in parking lot B due to events. But some coordination's got to happen in order to prohibit it.
That lot in particular, it's just not big enough for any events.
Right.
Right? What's the point of reserving spots for an event there when it can't serve the event? There isn't a single event you can have there that has enough parking.
So what we find, like for example, like if the governor's coming, so the governor will require, as part of their security regiment, they'll say we have to have 10 spaces, and those ones have to be here, and you have to make sure.
Yeah, but the governor can park right in the street, right in front of them, and nobody can stop them.
Right, yeah. But the same thing, like if somebody's going to set up a big show, they need those spaces to like bring a truck in and park it and start unloading or loading equipment. Like stage players, stuff like that. So that wouldn't necessarily be specifically for the attendees, but for the, setup.
Any idea how much parking at the Opera House or really in any of the lots are businesses and their staff, their employees versus tourists, you know, because like at some point you have to have staff and employee parking on Main Street. You know, we have however many businesses, they all have staff that have at least one vehicle or, so I just didn't know whether it was this or other lots, if there was a look at how much and where staff parks.
Yeah, with our study, we weren't able to really distinguish who was parking where. It was just, is there a car here or not? And so, I mean, we did hear about that when we had our business owner forum about how there needs to be, I think the big comment we heard about was just better lighting and safety particularly at night. You know, we're asking our staff to go park, you know, behind the movie theater on Clay Street. We're not going to feel comfortable doing that if having the lights aren't working and that sort of thing. So that was the main thing that we heard about in terms of.
I gotta believe that during the day, certainly no study to back it up, but just my gut's telling me at least half of that lot behind the theater is
Main Street staff.
Yeah, well, I mean, my staff uses probably 8 or 10 of them.
I'd say the same is true down Amnesty Street,
Yeah.
where the parking area goes.
I think wherever it's free, you know, Green Street's probably similar right now.
Yeah,
I know there's a couple times I was down on the Murrow parcel that was heavily parked on as well, which I think is great because to me that's where you want your staff, so your customers can come closer, you know, to the businesses.
In Clay Street, I know that's used by library staff. I know I park there.
Was there any discussion about dedicated staff parking, you know, business staff parking areas?
So we did talk about that a little bit. I think in terms of a kind of a publicly funded employee parking area, we didn't quite think that we didn't quite support that idea. You know, I think with the conversation about shared use of parking, that's an opportunity to think about consolidated employee parking. But it seems like it might be something that's better figured out between individual businesses. So we're pretty close to the end here. I don't want to jump into your regular meeting too much. So we can kind of wrap up pretty quick here. The next one I want to look at, Andrew, was 4A. Is that? 4A is meters. So this is kind of the crux recommendation that underpins a lot of this. So this whole section, Objective 4, talks about, you know, how do you support these projects and improve maintenance. There's a lot of things about revenues. So this was discussed a lot. We were recommending that meter fees be increased from 25 cents an hour to 50 cents an hour. We conservatively estimate that you'd about double the amount of revenue coming in to support a lot of the recommendations that we're talking about. So things like signage, better maintenance, better safety, better lighting. 50 cents really is still not very high if you look at comparable communities. It's still pretty dang cheap. So we see that's a lot of benefit in terms of being able to, you know, have a parking system almost that is paying for itself. We don't have to go out to the warrant articles and ask the taxpayers for money. We kind of have a system that is self-funded. And so in the table, we have some specific recommendations about where meter rates could be increased and where additional meters could potentially be installed, both short-term and potentially looking at the long-term. But the 50-cent increase we are recommending apply to the meters on Main Street. We're recommending that the meters on the community house lot in Border Street stay at 25 cents unless that demand starts to really tick up for those spaces. In the future, like I mentioned before, you could look at the Opera House, and then you could look at expanding the amount of public parking at the community house down the road, and even looking at Amnesty Street for metering potentially in the future. Again, kind of if the demand continues to increase and there's a need to start turning those spaces over more quickly throughout the day, there's some options. Yeah, so yeah, that's Austin. Yeah, Austin has like 30 meters in reserve that are just in the shed right now.
Would we actually go that route? I mean, doesn't it seems kiosks are much more efficient.
Yeah, I think long term that's one thing to look at. I know there's the kiosk system are they're in some ways more challenging to manage because you need to have Wi-Fi. You need to have a system in place to kind of manage that system. And they do also sometimes require, there's like space requirements that you need to have on the sidewalks. And there's also some concerns about having folks having to walk back and forth too much if you're limited mobility, that sort of thing. Longer, I think we didn't end up making a short-term recommendation for that. I don't think we would say longer term that we would rule it out though. But it is, the upfront investment in that is fairly significant. They're not that cheap. And then you have to get, the Wi-Fi network set up and some other things. So
You need a real dense parking lot, meaning you put the kiosk in the middle and within a few hundred feet you're walking to get the ticket.
Well, I mean, we've all been to towns where all of Main Street is kiosks.
you know, so you can
So
concentrate.
then you just put them every,
Yeah.
but then
Yeah, it's like one every block on each side of the road. Typically, it's like
why wouldn't you recommend increasing the parking to 50 cents everywhere? Is there,
I think we saw it in our study that we didn't see as big of utilization on Porter Street and
do you think it's because of the coffee? I don't think 50 cents is going to cause it to turn over any faster than 25 cents because it's still too cheap.
yeah.
So why wouldn't you just do 50 cents anywhere? Was there a discussion? I may not be, I wasn't involved in all the discussion, so I may not be thinking.
Well,
this through.
we did it based upon the usage of that particular zone.
Yeah, it's kind of demand based. And then I know at least on Porter Street, that's a lot of folks there are parking for the desired use there is to park for longer than 2 hours typically. So we did recommend increasing that limit to 4 hours. So increasing to 4 hours would also increase it to 50 cents. I think the businesses on Porter Street probably would have been pleased with us on that one.
The parking meters, now, do they just take quarters, dimes, and the park card? But at this time, they can take nickels? Okay, but at this time, they don't take, you can't do like a credit card or debit card or...
Right. Well, you can, they are made so that you can take the card unit out we have and put a credit card unit in. But we run into the same thing with the kiosk. We just think we need to develop a Wi-Fi system to be able to work.
And then, and they don't take dollar coins, however. They take them. I'm just thinking, if you got 4 hours at 50 cents an hour, I mean, at some point, people, you just start carrying a roll of quarters in your car. Because I don't know about anybody else. I don't know much charge.
You buy the park and the card.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And it's going to building, more time collecting the coins.
So
Going
it's,
back to the meter rates, it's probably based on my past experience in other transportation budgeting venues. It's probably a good idea to raise them a little more frequently rather than have everybody have the expectation that, well, it's been 25 cents for the last 50 years. I know it hasn't been the last 50 years, but you have less resistance when you do a smaller increase more.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting you go more than 50 just because of that sticker shock. I understand that. I just don't understand having two different rates for every place because I still think it's really cheap.
If you looked at Main Street, you would see a lot of traffic parking.
Yeah, I know, I understand.
You go down to West Elm or West Main, and it thins out.
Yeah, but it has nothing to do with the cost. It's what people use and it's...
Where we put the
yeah.
meters.
yeah, I think we were trying to kind of respond to the demand, but I think, we're not talking about a long run.
Yeah.
I think outside of the post office, which has a high turnover,
Yeah.
I think everywhere else is pretty uniform.
Yeah. And I think one of the critical things with that is, I think if you do go through the process of updating the traffic ordinance and you change that rate, I think it's probably a good idea to have some stuff that's shovel ready, like the signage or some other projects, just to, you want to be able to demonstrate that the worst thing you could do is raise meter rates and then not do anything for 2 years. So that's a good way to, not, get your money taken away, because, you're not doing what you said you would do. So I think just thinking about the timing of that, and phasing it, with some of the other projects to A, fund them, but also just to show that this is being rolled out logically. This is
Yeah.
very important.
That's a good point.
I know it's a little after 5, I just had a couple other ones that I wanted to go over quickly. That's okay.
That's fine, yeah.
Okay. And if you want to go to 4B, you guys are a little ahead of us on this one, but we basically recommended increasing parking fines modestly. I think, $5 fine was not a deterrent for a lot of folks, and
My wife got a parking ticket the day after we increased them. Unfortunately, they were still using old parking tickets.
Where people from Massachusetts go, that's an hourly rate. It's cheap.
So, $10 is still not overly, we don't think that's overly burdensome, but it's a little more deterrent, and again, you get a little more revenue to support the conversion of the project. So, that was kind of a companion piece to the meter increases.
Nothing else went up as far as meters, like parking in the handicapped section, parking on sidewalks.
Fines went up. We increased all
They
the fines.
did, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Like there's a crosswalk, parking in a crosswalk.
Is that's $300 is for handicap?
Handicap.
So that's our,
I think the crosswalk one was like 5, then we went up to 25.
Right.
Okay.
go to 5E, Andrew. So this is the one that Andrew's mentioned before, talking about parking district. So this is one that I don't think, Chief Smith isn't here tonight. Some of the police department has kind of taken on and as I believe is working on. So the idea of the parking district is that you would basically would use that to formalize where there's available overnight parking by getting a permit for that. And the benefit would be that it, for those folks who are renting and don't have a place on site, it's gonna, kind of ease some of their anxiety about where can I park, make sure that they do have a legal parking option. It's also an opportunity to improve communication by, if you're in that program, you can develop text alerts and things like that. So if there's snow removal going on, construction or maintenance activities going on, you can send an alert. Like Andrew's saying, folks parked in parking lot A, please park in parking lot B tonight. So we can remove snow or restrict lines or repave the parking lot, that sort of thing. And I think that will help kind of manage some of the demand that we see in some of the long-term parking, and just promote better communication so that Public Works is trying to do what they need to do to maintain that infrastructure. They're able to do it.
They can't get a lot cleared, we lose spaces.
Right. Yeah, and that's part of the challenge right now is that you end up with if a car stays there overnight, you end up with you lose 3 parking spaces basically because you can't get the plow close enough. So should help maintain some of the capacity better in the winter as well.
Like Saranac and Music with paving and line striping, we had to go flyer everybody's car, the signs up, and we don't know who's there, so it's difficult to kind of get everybody to know what's going on. So, one car parked overnight can stop a whole project. So.
2 more that I want to go over quickly. One is 5F, so same page. This is one that Chief Smith brought to us. So there's potential with some of the rail trail improvements. Andrew can give you the latest updates on that project. So there might be more of an opportunity for OHOAs or TVs to access the downtown area. And Littleton, I think, has the benefit of being, able to get out a little bit ahead in terms of establishing parking locations, not only for the vehicles themselves, but vehicle trailers. We've seen in other communities that becomes a big challenge because of how much space they take up. And the opportunity to designate some, if you have a designated parking area for ATVs, you can designate specific routes that you'd expect them to follow and develop an ordinance and be able to enforce that so that everybody's able to stay safe and reducing any potential conflicts out there. So a specific location for parking vehicles in the downtown area, a specific location for parking trailers. We would recommend outside of the downtown area, so that can be a shared with, because one of this is Meadow Street that has a lot of available space. And once you do figure out those locations, let's think about how do people get on and off to and from the rail trail safely. And one last one, 6B, Andrew. So this one where we suggest that the town have some sort of regularly scheduled meeting where the different town entities or staff that are involved in managing parking come together and discuss kind of what's going on and you know, who needs support and having different initiatives or efforts by different departments. You know, how can they best be collaborative in nature? So, you know, thinking of a meeting, you know, once a quarter, every other month, something like that, between town manager, police, public works, and then if there needs to be representatives from land use boards there as well. That will just be a better way of making sure that we don't end up with competing projects or competing efforts that are when there's an opportunity to kind of streamline those. And it's also an opportunity to just hear what's going on, get the pulse of, you know, let's keep an eye on the parking situation going forward so that we can be responsive to, you know, any changes that we're seeing.
So we do this already. We have a monthly traffic safety meeting, which is police, fire, and DPW.
Correct.
We bring in the planning, zoning, admin.
Okay.
So,
Good job.
yeah, but there's a lot of moving parts.
Yeah, I think it's just, you know, because you read, for example, you know, if there's a big development coming into downtown, you know, we think this is going to generate a lot of parking demand. So, you know, how do we address this type of thing, or how do we, you know, let's keep an eye on it. So, yeah, just an opportunity for better information sharing is the main goal.
Right.
Was there ever any discussion as far as the tour buses and where to?
Yes. Yeah. So
seeing that we're screaming into that season.
Yeah, we had a recommendation in there to look at kind of either what do you call it, a park and ride or some sort of central facility that would be able to be kind of there's different transit services that come onto Main Street, Tri-County Transit and RCT bus and Grafton County Senior Citizens Council, you have tour buses, you have country coach. So, you know, if there's an opportunity to say, here's kind of where these pickups and drop-offs happen, and then we've got a designated space. You know, that is something that we talked about the need for. That we think would be a pretty collaborative effort.
Season.
And yeah, and seasonal in nature. So that's one where I think we kind of as a more planning is needed kind of recommendation. But we also, you know, one of the things with the tour bus is that if you think about the efficiency of a space on Main Street, you know, even 3 or 4 cars parking and dropping off a couple people each versus a tour bus dropping off 50 or 60 people, you know, that's, if you're a business, that's a lot more potential customers. So, you know, we want to make sure people are being safe, and that, you know, there is some parking on Main Street, but it's not, we didn't necessarily consider it a universally negative event, but tour bus parks on Main Street for that reason. So it's kind of, you know, where's that balance?
The other thing was electronic vehicles. That's something somebody should be looking at.
Yep. Yeah, so you had a recommendation about adding electric vehicle charging. And I think that's going to be increasingly important in, you know, tourist communities or where there's a tourism economy. You know, you can't drive my car there, I'm not going to come. So
We added those?
Yeah, we have 2, well, they don't have the actual units on them yet, but we have 2 spaces that are going to be level 2 charging
That's
stations.
the fast charging?
Those are 300 and something thousand a piece, I believe. So for the level 3s. So the level 2s, I think, are between $1,000 and $3,000. We have one that's being donated by Littleton Chevy, and we have to purchase a second. What we did during the project was, while the ground was open, we had all the conduit ran to the 2 spots. So, and they're on the Thayer side of the parking. So the hope is that it also, you know, can help the company visitors who are staying overnight potentially.
If we ever, in our wildest dreams, get to level 3 charging, is the conduit there, or does that have to be all dug up?
Yeah, that'd have to be, I think, a separate event. I know that the co-op right now is actually,
Circuit.
yeah, I think it'd be a lot of work, but the co-op is installing, I think, 1 or 2 of those under a project, I think it's called Electrify America. I believe it's a project that
Level 3
the
charging?
level 3 chargers, which are the 30 minutes, I think, to 80%. So they got a good grant.
And that's, we did, in our recommendation, we said, if you are going to be repaving or reconstructing a parking lot, then that's kind of the opportunity to phase that road improvement in without going in just, and digging up just for the purpose of installing the conduit. So another one where you can think about how these things get phased in.
That's great.
What they do at other places is the hourly rate for that particular meter is higher to cover the cost of the charging.
So they don't charge for actually charging, they charge for the space.
Right,
So if you stay there and don't charge, too bad.
yeah. But why would you? So, yeah. So
Why would you? Because the rate's so cheap that it's not worth moving.
Well, yeah, the rate for that one won't be cheap.
And that's a deterrent too, to have a non-electric vehicle parked there as well.
Yeah.
So it's self-correcting.
Yeah, and there's the other way too, like at the co-op, they have an issue sometimes where someone will park there and they'll charge for, say, 10 minutes, and then they'll just leave it in the charging space. It takes up the charging space, so there's, you want.
Oh.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the couple that we wanted to pick up and focus on. There's quite a bit more. So if you have questions, I'll have you come back anytime and talk about it. And, or shoot me an email.
Thank you for all your hard work.
Yeah, this is a great job. It's a lot of work clearly went into this, and we really appreciate it.
I did great.
Hopefully we don't shelve it and ignore it.
We'll get it right.
Little by little, we start getting this stuff done.
The parking committee does not want to continue on indefinitely being the shepherd of all of the parking efforts. This was a short-term, high-intensity effort. I do have a question for you guys. Where are we with the purchase of the building there on the lot behind the Jack Jr.?
You want?
Yeah,
So
go ahead.
the 24 Main Street, the purchaser of 24 Main bought 24 and 17 Hillview, which is the barn. So I've already had a discussion with him about his potential of selling that space. He has a couple of ideas, so it's going to be up to that.
A key part of our plan.
Well, private property owners can do what they please with their property, so.
Okay.
Yeah. But the good thing is I do have a conversation going on with the owner, so. Truly his interest was just, he needed to secure 24 Main and he needed to do it quickly, so he thought both.
So you had to buy everything to make it happen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
I know.
You just can't call it that because you know you
Yes, it's stuff.
So we have to close that meeting, open the public meeting.
Yeah.
Or we just continue?
Yeah, we need to do the pledge.
Yeah. So we can close that meeting.
Oh, I know, I gotta cut it, I'm gonna cut it to
And
you got really high, pull it up.
we will open the regular selectmen's meeting now. We'll start with the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United want to just skip it and see if he comes, or you want to, I don't want to have him show up and have you already gone through it.
Sure, yeah.
All right, we'll come back to that.
They cancel contract or?
Next thing, River District Redevelopment Commission, Plan New Hampshire charrette.
Okay.
Okay, you guys got the fun. This is Dave Ernstberger, and I'm going to be just in a couple minutes updating you. Thank you very much for the time, and thanks for your support. We're quite excited about this charrette again. In 2012, in September, we did a charrette similar to this, looking at the river district, mostly focused on the north side of the river, and the results were fantastic for us. It created the momentum and the enthusiasm in the community that we needed. And you can see the results. So as we're trying to rethink what are we going to do on the other side of the river and get some momentum there, we felt it would be great to have another Plan New Hampshire group come in and take a look at things on the south side of the river. So that's what's going on this Friday and Saturday. They arrive on Friday. There are 12 professionals from around the state from all kinds of different disciplines involved in community planning. They'll be here to brainstorm with us for a couple of days about what we can do there. The plan is for us to brief them, take them on a tour of the area, then on day 2, you can go to the chart there. Now, this is the focus of this one, just to be clear, is from Bridge Street, where the new bimodal bridge is, down to the Hitchner complex. And the reason we extended it past Coyote Street is with the rail to trail opportunity that's there, we wanted to be thinking about how we move people from that geography down to the Main Street downtown area, and that'll be a very key part of it. So back on you can go to the third one there, which is the agenda a little bit. So early in the morning, we'll take them around and tour them and brief them on all the different parcels that we're talking about. We have a 1:30 to 3 o'clock listening session from invited many of the major stakeholders downtown, including any of the select board and management from the town that could be there. After that meeting, they'll have a working lunch, and then at 3:30, we'll have them have a public listening session. And so 3:30 to 5 o'clock and 6:30 to 8 is an opportunity for any interested citizen that has ideas on things we should be doing down there or concerns about what might be done down there should show up at these sessions. It's at the Opera House, so we'll have plenty of room. And we'll divide those people, depending on the size of the crowd, we'll divide them into smaller groups so that they all have a chance to have a conversation with one of the Plan New Hampshire professionals about what they want to have focused on from their particular vantage point. After that session, then the next day, they will put all the information they've gotten from the first day into a plan and present back to us their recommendations, initial recommendations, at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. So the real public sessions are 3:30 to 5 on Friday, 6:30 to 8 o'clock Friday night for those that can't make it in the afternoon. And then at 3 o'clock, they'll present back to us on Saturday afternoon. And usually about a month or two after that, they'll give us a full written report with all kinds of renderings of what they're suggesting. It turned out to be a great document for us last time, and we're quite enthused about the potential of it this time.
And you mentioned earlier about, you put plans on the shelf, and I think one of the things that Plan NH was excited about was the fact that, the River District Committee and the town has really pushed the charrette into action.
Yeah.
And so,
That's a good example of not letting it sit there.
Yeah.
Well, one of the really great things we did for the town, I think, is setting up the River District Commission after that first charrette. And it's been very helpful, I think, for keeping our focus on what are the priorities and what do we do moving forward. And it's been a key part of why some of these new businesses are beginning to come to the River District area. And we've certainly increased our tax base in the last couple of years from the development activities there, and a lot of new employees that find work downtown because of these new businesses. So.
Yeah, the interesting thing, in one of the grant applications, I remember it was some little bit of controversy about it, that it listed on an independent study saying that we would create 500 jobs and no one thought that was realistic, but there's already 120, I think is where we're at right now, 120 new jobs, just in the River District, and it's not, fully built out at all, so.
So of course, a big focus of us is going to be that 7.2 acres that's on the other side. The town now has a lease arrangement for a couple of years with. And there's huge potential there. And then with that beautiful, the view space coming off that rail to trail up above that land could be pretty incredible. So there's some really, really nice things that could be done with that property. That'll be a big focus of ours.
That's great.
And just one other quick thing, if you don't mind, I'd really like to thank Dave, because there was a lot of planning that even got us to this point. And Dave has really taken this and run with it, Dave and John Hennessy, and it wouldn't be happening if they hadn't done that. They've even gone out on donations for the extra cash that was needed to be able to host the team that's coming. So, just wanted to
no
thank
real
them.
expense to the town for this.
Yeah.
Anyway, we love our town and love what's going on in this town, so we want to do everything we can to keep the momentum going.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. So the 1:30 to 3, that's for the stakeholders, and then 3:30 to 5 is the public.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna be able to get to, I'm out all day on Friday, so I'll be at the 6:30 to 8 one, just because I can't attend the other ones. Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Next, town manager's report.
So first up, I have the Mill Street progress report. So Mill Street's complicated, and I'll just read through some of the things that are in my report to help the public hear about what's going on there. So Mill Street really had 3 pending projects. There was the subsurfacing of overhead utility lines, stormwater and sewer water improvements, the transportation alternative program, which is pedestrian and streetscape improvements. So the project had included consideration of timing of subsurface electrical and other connections considerations. And at this point, we looked at engineering and rollout for that area to put all the power lines underground. It's going to be about $350,000. If you took into consideration all the connections that come off of the line itself, we were estimating, a total of about 500. It could come out a lot less than that, but in order for us to move forward, we would have to engage the service of an engineer. And so we held a meeting, invited anyone who owned property or a business on Mill Street to attend. Of those that attended, it seemed like there wasn't really interest in paying for it. Rather than us going and asking the taxpayers to do this, we asked the property owners to invest. One property owner is interested in doing it just in front of the buildings that he owns. He's been put in contact directly with the engineer that we were working with, so he may be engaging his services. We'll be continuing to coordinate with him so that when he does that, it doesn't interfere with our projects. So we're in communication. It seems like about once a week right now about it. So. The sewer stormwater portion right now, that one was originally part of Sub 5. We took that out. We're now funding that completely with sewer maintenance funds, and that frees us up with our schedule, so it makes it a little easier. One of the issues that we ran into was, I believe, water and light needed a space for a fire hydrant, and we also needed to kind of open up a constricted roadway. So we have a little extra property in an area that then we realized before, after we conducted a survey, and we're building in the engineering of a retaining wall on one of the properties. So we're working on that contract. I think the contract for the engineering for that should be done this week. Our goal really for that project is to get it out to bid.
Water and light needed a hydrant?
Well, the fire department, I think, wants access to a hydrant.
Oh, okay.
Water and light
All right.
wants the hydrants. So
Where are they looking to locate the hydrant?
that would be across from, where the mural is?
Yeah.
Yep, so it'd be pretty much right across from that.
Okay.
So, and we've already talked with the landlord, showed them the information there, so the one that's about to in there. Okay.
Good.
So yeah, our goal is to put this out to bid this winter with a construction hopefully this spring. So that one we have pretty good amount of control over because it is our project. So the weather is the other factor that will determine when we can actually start. The other portion of the project is the pedestrian streetscape. That's funded by the New Hampshire Transportation Alternative Program. Mill Street, while complicated in many ways, for this pedestrian portion at least, is not that difficult. The difficult part right now is Cottage Street. We're in a process where with the DOT, that's set by the DOT so they can meet federal funding standards. And we're in a process right now where we submit all of our plans to, we're talking about preliminary plans, this isn't final engineering. We've submitted them to the DOT. The DOT has come back with some pretty significant recommendations for scope expansion, and it's all really good stuff. It's just it'll cost more money. So we submitted comments back that would say, yeah, we'd like to say basically, yeah, we like your recommendations, but are you going to provide us with additional TAP funds? The expansion of the project was to, rather than stop at the intersection with South Street, was to continue it all the way to the bridge. And one of the other recommendations was to do road narrowing. Our plan was to do road narrowing on one side with additional sidewalks and a green space. They would like to see that on both sides of the street, which would be great. I think that there's a need for it. We have a lot of residential and multifamily homes on that side, including a senior center and low-income housing. So I think there's
is there any budget attached to what those recommendations are?
We would have to get an engineering estimate on it. I mean, right now we're looking at $1 million to do Cottage Street and Mill Street. So I would think that it'd be a significant increase. And the goal would be not to have to go back to the voters to ask them.
Right.
So there was one other recommendation, that is we have an issue right now with that blinking light, and things like, for example, to hit the button, the cross button. For me, I would never even notice it, but an elderly person or that's mobility issues, they have to actually go out to the road to hit the cross button. And then the blinking yellow light nowadays, blinking yellow means slow down, not stop.
Yeah.
So they have the DOT, and actually a lot of these recommendations came from Jim McMahon and his role as a DOT engineer, was to take that out and replace it. And I believe that's that alone is like 40 to 50,000, maybe a little more to do that.
There's similar ones like at the elementary school, right? The way it goes to school.
Yep.
Right, they did that.
That's DOT responsibility, right? No.
We're responsible for the crosswalk.
So it's their crosswalk, it's their light, but they, similar to the street lights that are at major intersections or the on-ramp, off-ramps, they no longer fund those. If the municipality wants to take them over or maintain them, then that'll be on us. So same thing with the pedestrian crossings. So I'm hoping to hear back from DOT this week about the comments and the questions. So.
That's a good one too, even if we're redoing things, to put in the conduit or whatever else is needed, and then if we can get a grant in the future.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean?
If there must be another tap. And then so just because I know that, there's people who want to get in and try to help coordinate especially Mill Street's a difficult one. Even the smaller streets are very dense. And there's going to be a lot of conflicts no matter what we do. So there's some that want to get involved in helping coordinate that, and just to help them understand that our hands are really tight as far as like figuring out when this is actually going to happen. We have, based on the local project administrator manual that the NHDOT puts out, which is what we follow through all these processes, we're on step 8. And each step takes, according to their manual, typically 1 month to 6 months. And each step involves pretty much a notice to proceed. So we'll submit information, they send back comments, we send them back, and eventually they'll say, okay, now you can proceed to the next step. So it's a fairly bureaucratic process, and it takes quite a bit of engineering budgeted. 20% minimum, they'll reject your application if you don't have 20% of the product cost and engineering, which is really high, just because they know that your engineer is involved in each step, and it is pretty much.
So speaking of that, are we able to utilize in-house engineering expertise at all for any of these things?
Not for TAC. We contracted out. I don't think we'd have the capacity to do that right now. We do have a civil engineer on staff, but right now I am really drinking out of a water hose just to even keep up with what we have going on. We're really active for the staff level that we have. I think Littleton's really in a transition point in its existence where the activity is pretty high and we're staffed at, early 2000 levels. So at some point we'll have to think about that. We're making do. Just to give you a quick update on sub area 2, I'm going to work on this a little more, but I've had a conversation with the USDA. They've indicated that what they do is they take our application, the regional USDA, which is Vermont, New Hampshire, they take that to Washington, D.C., and then do a proposal to them to try to get them to fund it. So while we qualify for 45% funding based on our demographics, they're indicating that they can't support a 45% funded project for us at the Washington, D.C. level. They don't feel confident we'll get passed. So what they said they would do is put in for 25% of sub-area 2. Right now, we're still trying to look at what that even means. If there's a 20% gap of funding, so it either means going back to the voters for committing additional 20% out of the sewer fund, or looking at alternative means. So at this point, I told the USDA that let's go after something rather than nothing, and we'll figure out how to get to the end game after that. So.
Does it make sense to go after something rather than nothing, or does it make sense to roll the dice and go after the 45 and if we don't get it, then we wait?
The hard thing is not up to us. So the USDA regional office is one that makes the determination about how they'll take the application down. When I say I'm looking at some other ways, I'm just, basically I want to look and see if there's somebody at the DC office that could change that. So we'll see. And just a quick update at the Opera House, we still have that sound project. There's one more vendor who we really wanted the proposal from them. They've been hooked up on, I think, 2 or 3 major jobs that they're rolling out. So they'll be coming in with a proposal for the sound here shortly. The unfinished floor space, we're looking at potential of turning that into a co-working space. We're just trying to feel that out right now. It might be actually a cheaper way to roll out the redevelopment of the space. Is going to have a big open space with cubicles rather than putting in partitions and everything else in the final place. So.
Co-working space for what?
So we're just like in the kind of exploring stage right now. So there's a thing called proximity. So what would happen is people who use proximity, it's more of a remote, like millennial thing. They'll have this proximity thing installed on their phone. When they come into town, they're on vacation, or they're whatever they're doing, they'll see where are the spaces available for me. They book the time they want, and they just come in and they come and go. And it's something that the whole class of people are looking for.
Yeah, I see that, but I also see the town getting involved with competing with private business, and I'm not sure how comfortable I am with that.
I think there's one co-working space in town right now. It's not done the same way. This would be, I don't know how competitive it would be.
I don't know.
Transient.
Yeah.
This type, whereas with Doug, he's got more of a permanent,
Like a
fixed space. Yeah.
So,
But still, we're getting into, the town's getting into, this is a private ventures, just about, I know nobody's doing it right now, I'm not saying that, but I think there needs to be discussion about that, whether we support, competing with the private sector.
Right.
So that's what we'd be doing, even though there's nobody offering it right now.
Right. I mean, you could say the same, you could. I mean, maybe that's a whole bigger discussion. Like, for example, right now we have an event space, right? So we're offering event space at $0 a day. I mean, there might be some corporation who wants to open a convention center or turn their space into a performance space. And, taxpayers.
That's a good point. And there's nobody doing it now. Right. So maybe the discussion is to be had when there is someone doing it.
Yeah. I mean, we do commercial.
I just, you know what I understand? I'm just,
absolutely. Yeah.
I want to be careful about treading on opportunity for private business to expand.
Right, I think something that we should be careful of too is like we do commercially rent space in that building. And I think that it's important that when we do that, we make sure that we're making the taxpayers whole and we're not, because taxpayers right now are subsidizing that building. So if we're offering a discounted rate, then we're doing it at basically to be a business and taxpayer expense. So I think that's important.
But that is too a different thing because there's a cultural component to that I think that any community has a responsibility to. Whereas this co-working space is just
We also have
private
an attorney
space.
We also have an attorney, right, that rents that, was it 10 by 10
Yeah.
square on the second floor?
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I think he's a elder care attorney that rents a space, yeah. So.
Well, now that I put that issue on the table, we'll see where it goes.
Right, yeah. Yeah, we'll keep that one. Keep talking about it, figure it out. We're in the early stages of it. And, you know, it's one of these things that's hard to try to actually dedicate time to.
Yeah.
We don't have a full-time person to actually focus on it. So. Yeah, ideally, we were looking at potential of using that space to help support the actual cultural arts component that's already there.
Right.
Like maybe upstage players would have an office up there or something like that. HVAC proposals are being submitted right now. Those are from the Article 12 of 2019. The rigging project is still pending. After, now we have Doug Bianco on. He is helping provide some in-house engineering and oversight on the project. And it looks like maybe there's not enough money actually available to get that done. It's a little more complicated than everybody thought, the on-premise commission. They hosted the Bernie Sanders event, Senator Hassett event, and a few more weddings this past month. Entertainment, I'm told, is light during summer months just because more people are outside. There's a lot of other concerts going on. And we do have a bit of a parking issue there with the easement that exists and some encroachment. Wastewater treatment plant, I think I reported you last meeting that the centrifuge was down. It would be electrical controls this time, not the actual mechanical. It looks like we have that temporarily repaired. I'm not sure how long that's going to last, but it may give us enough time. I talked to DES staff about this, that if we have enough time, we could actually turn the centrifuge to dryer system into a state clean water revolving loan fund application, which would then give us it's basically we can be up to a 12.5% grant. So it's better than,
It's a grant, not a loan.
Well, it's a
Well, you loan the money, you pay it back with these funds, but you get 12.5% paid back.
Yeah. So we try to do that, anything we can do to extend the funds. We were using RMI for our waste solids to be trucked out. They are switching their business model. They're not even going to be doing that anymore, so we had to put that back out to bid. Right now we're working with Casella on a contract, but they required some upgrades in the plant, including some odor control.
How's the pricing looking?
Well, that's what we're trying to do is calculate all of their new requirements that they have into the price so we can figure out, if it's within range of where we were before. So I think we're pretty close. Right now we're working with their attorney. So EMS transition, so at the next meeting I expect we're going to have contracts from Easton and Sugar Hill for you guys to approve. Their boards both have it, but I don't know that they've actually had a chance to review them yet. At the transfer station, the auditor.
Can we back up, go back to the EMS for a second? Sure. So are the rates established yet? I know that you had established billing rates.
Yeah, so the rates will be built into that contract when you get them. What we'll do is we'll get you a draft of what's been sent to Sugar Hill and Easton. We wanted to send it to them, see if they had any changes to come back, so you guys didn't have to consider it before they've signed off on it. But I'll get you that with the rates.
Well, whether we have a contract with Sugar Hill or Easton, don't we have to have rates established? Doesn't the board have to establish rates?
As far as legally, I have to look at that, see if the board establishes it. Probably be established for.
There is a rate schedule there, or
Yeah, I know, there was one for temporary, but I thought that the board of selectmen had to approve a rate schedule, regardless of whether Easton or Sugar Hill come on.
Right. Yep, I'll look at that.
Do we have I don't know if a punch list is the right term, but I know, when we were originally looking at the EMS, the transition, the 3-year pilot was going to have certain metrics that we measure and, goals that we have to hit. Have we identified those and started tracking those yet?
I don't think, we probably have through the tracking system, but I don't think we have the exact metrics set up as far as what was going to be. We were talking about the audit with the contractor.
That's, we received a report today. Obviously, probably haven't seen it yet, but that, what you're speaking about is in fact in our upcoming items. We're scheduling a EMS commission meeting to review exactly that, the MRI recommendations, and to set those metrics. And once we set those metrics, we can then present them to the board. So that's what we're going to do in the next couple of weeks. This month, our quality assurance and improvement program starts, so that would be in effect. And basically, we're updating policies and procedures that have to do with EMS response, continued staff training, and we've been advertising and interviewing for part-time staffing. But to answer your question, yes, you're correct. That needs to get done, and once we set the EMS commission meeting date, that is what's going to be on the agenda.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Transfer station. So the auger from Article 15 of 2019 is now in use. C&D and bulky is way up, I'm hearing. It's, construction happening all over the place. I think that's reflecting that. And auger is just in time. It makes the loads heavier. But we were thinking, we're going to save money on transportation. But there's just so much construction activity that, we'll see an increase in the transportation line.
But we should be getting revenue for that.
Yeah, we'll be getting revenue too. So. Our last crushing contract with NRA, we're reviewing, doing an increased allowable tonnage to try to get us ready for, increase in usage. Initially, we were looking at a different contract with about glass, like, for example, I think it was, they wanted to move it somewhere else, but we're going to keep it on site.
So I understand with all the turmoil in recycling over the past year plus, glass is one of the big challenges. So, and when I asked this question before, since we keep all the glass on site, it hasn't impacted us financially.
That's correct.
Has this new contract affected us? Is it?
So right now we're looking at, the tonnage, the limits that we're at, we're looking at increasing the amount that we're allowed to contribute to the district, which ends up in our hands anyways. Just so basically NRRA and their members are paying to crush the glass, and we're the site to take it for a certain number of towns.
Okay.
So our portion of it, we want to increase that number. And the good thing right now, we have a good relationship with the landfill who's doing a project, and they've been taking quite a bit of glass.
And there's also talk that, some of that could be used for bases of future roads as well, right?
There is, yeah. And one of the goals that I wanted to do with Amnesic and Saranac Street was the New Hampshire Department of Transportation actually came up with a spec, so you can include it in an engineered design. And I wanted to do that with the Saranac and Amnesic project because we're doing so much base compaction. But the problem was that it's labor intensive because you have to bring the glass in, you have to go through some kind of mixing process, and then so I think that at some point, especially since we're a host site, we might want to think about that in our gravel pit. Is this something that we want to go ahead and dedicate labor to pre-mix and have a pre-mix?
It was done several years ago onto a portion of the river walk.
Okay.
Crushed glass is put down.
I think we use it in culverts, like compaction around culverts and things like that right now, but not as a go-to road base. That's good.
I'm contributing as many wine bottles as I can.
All right. That's good. Keep recycling. And, I think that our recycling numbers and things are down, but the transfer station's doing pretty good. And I believe it's because of, we really have an economy of scale. I didn't put in here the tonnages that we're doing, I don't believe, but we're doing quite a bit.
As a consumer, or, as a resident, are there certain items, just not knowing that much about the recycling industry, especially with China not buying as much stuff now, what are the valuable things that people should be bringing in that in turn, bring their community money? So, no, yes, we want people to recycle as much as they can, but if there's is there like a punch list of, hey, we're getting a ton of money for this right now, bring everything in that you can?
I could get you that. I would say, is it non-ferrous metals are always better,
What is non-ferrous?
So it's like copper, some things that aren't magnetic, like copper and aluminum and, any of that.
Gold and silver.
Gold, silver, yeah. Titanium, plastic. But really what we look at is like the diversion rate and then how much it costs to get rid of something. So if you were to throw, your glass into the trash, it's actually, more expensive to get rid of trash than it is paper.
Right.
Even though paper costs money, to get rid of, it's less. Where communities ran into trouble were where they didn't charge for trash, or they had single stream because those costs went above solid waste. We're at $80 a ton for solid waste, and you're getting paid, $5 for cardboard. You're still getting $5.
Well, and the market dropped out of cardboard because they weren't buying it anymore because of single stream.
Yeah.
It was contaminated.
That's right. Paper, I think it was called Operation Paper Sword, where China just cut it off. But things are good there.
Except the
dump truck.
Yeah.
Except the dump trucks. Yeah. So we have a rough time right now with equipment. I was at Public Works last week, and we have 3 trucks that are down. Luckily, one of them was being replaced anyways by the Warren article, but we have 2 others that have been limping along. One of the trucks that we have in operation, I think it's one where we repaired a bent frame that rolled over, and we took an engine out of another one and put it in it. And we're really kind of limping along, and I just say that to expect that there's going to be some vehicles. We're way out of our cycle. There hasn't really, I don't think the cycle's been for 10 years or more been looked at. So we'll have a few vehicles. So right now we're using the opportunity with the dump truck at the transfer station to really look and see. We've been giving them dump trucks, but they've been coming out of the Public Works Department, and did that as kind of a measure to reuse something that may be less heavy use on it. But really, is that what they even need? Box trucks are pretty cheap. A box truck may be what they actually need. So we're going to just take a look at that, or a flatbed, and just try to figure out what they actually need and go for that. So, and the cardboard baler, that's been now refurbished, between $6,000 and $7,000, but that's extended life of that till 2023. Those aren't cheap, so that's good.
Jumping back up to the dump truck, do you think, because I know they do a lot of pickup for Tendercorp and for the coin company, I wonder if they would be willing to do something.
That's a good
It's
question.
on a daily basis.
It is, yeah, we do quite a bit. I mean, it's really in the benefit of both the taxpayers and the company, so that's a good question.
Now, a lot of the companies on the metal, they actually ship it out to their suppliers, correct? Or to their, Walmart has its own, a lot of them have their own balers, right?
Yeah, we looked at that a little bit to try to see if, because that'd be a lot of business to grab. But they have their own, they've got it all monetized and figure out, as part of their revenue stream, so. But, on the Parks and Recreation, so the summer camp was good this year. They had 60+ kids daily, and they did quite a few. I can have him come sometime and give you an overview of what's going on, but I think it's public information. He just had a second baby, so if you get a chance to say congratulations to him, he had a little girl. Golf tournament fundraiser is set for the 15th. Sponsorship for park banners. Chris has been doing a really good job with that. And Convenient MD, for example, is going to get $4,000 to the banner program. And Even Littleton Regional Hospital is talking verbally of making a pretty substantial commitment to the playground project. So.
This is a banner program. What do you, for this event?
No. So the banner program is to
Adds it all parks.
Yeah, adds on fences. So like if you're at the baseball field,
Because,
there'll be some banners out there.
so, I mean, Babe Ruth, they're already doing that, right?
I don't know.
The fences are covered.
That's through the park. I think that's through the parks. The parks department actually.
Oh, it
Might
is?
do that, yeah.
Because I was
Like
contacted,
if you,
like,
I'm just thinking like if you go to Apthorpe or you go to,
I wrote a check to Littleton Babe Ruth, not that I ever did that for that banner, but I have up there. I'm pretty sure.
well, I think that's what, and that's the banner that, because I know the bank we did like 3 of them or whatever at the bank.
Good.
I think it was for like the fields, so maybe it was Apthorpe, Remick, and maybe I don't know, Brickyard or something like that. I can't remember all of them. It's different packages for different things, so.
I wasn't aware of it.
I guess, on that too, so now we have a new Parks and Rec website, and it's all part of a new system so that you can register your kids for programs or rent a facility. It's not totally finished. I tried to use it myself, and there's some quirks with it.
Yeah, I tried this when I sponsored the golf team for this. It was a little cumbersome. For an individual it worked, it didn't work for a business very well. So. But he said he's working on it.
Yeah.
So I called him and said, set it up.
Maybe one of your guys could actually help us with that.
Probably.
Yeah. So.
Actually, definitely.
Yeah, okay. We'll be in touch. And maybe because Chris is going to be a little distracted for a little piece here. At the library had an interesting experience this summer. They were kind of a de facto daycare facility where parents who didn't have anywhere to send their kids, they ended up hanging out at the library all day. So they were pretty busy, but kept some kids off the street.
Yeah.
Books, programs, computers. So
they didn't have a problem with it.
Yep, it seemed like it went pretty well. I think usually there's some issues. I don't know if Chris has heard about any. The library daycare.
Good program.
Yeah, good program. Yeah, it's good. I think that the library and Parks and Rec are going to try to work together so that those kids could have the option to come out and make sure that the families know that there are options if you can't afford to participate. So the book sale is going to be on the 21st, the same weekend as the art festival. And the libraries told us that they had a significant increase in library usage. A lot of new families and people really using the library.
Great.
So it's good. Planning and zoning, I'll go ahead and just say that right now. The planning and zoning community forum is going to be on September 24th at 6 p.m. at the Opera House. And really hope that the public can attend. This has been going through the master plan process, I think, has been going on for about a year. So this will be some of the major community input. There have been other sections where they've held some community forums, and this will be the big one. And of course, there's always lawsuits coming out of decisions that are pending. At Public Works right now, we have 2 pending openings. A longtime employee is potentially moving, and we have another employee who's accepted a position as a truck driver. We can't compete with the pay, so. Also, Public Works, like I mentioned before, we have 3 vehicles down, and we're stripping them for parts right now, and we'll have some requests. We are exploring some emergency options, really looking at used vehicles and potentially using some of the FEMA money to maybe get something to bridge the gap, and then those vehicles can be a backup in the future. EMS, Bruce Hadlock had brought up at a previous meeting about malpractice insurance, so we did look into that with Primex. Primex let us know that we were, covered under their plan. They did recommend that we reach out to our own legal to just ask them about the malpractice insurance. We've done that, but I haven't got a response back yet. At the police department, they're working on a number of things, of course, but the traffic ordinance considerations for the ATV, UTV policies being considered, and I think chief's on that. So, and that is what I have for today. I don't know if you have any questions for any other specific information. Well, I do take that back. I do have one other thing. A year-to-date budget. And just a quick overview. Last year, at this time, we were at 65%. Typically, we should be about 67.31%. At this date, we're at 66.81, so we're right there.
Well, any updates on the rail trail?
Any updates at this point will need to come from the Bureau of Trails. So maybe I should put a phone number up there for people to call that.
You've been working on this for 6 years.
Yeah. But
I've been hearing for 2.5, it's done.
so, I mean, where we really are is there was a federal process that the town really was responsible for, and there were some hiccups with the original contracts, and additional money was needed. We were able to partner with DOT and the Attorney General's office and get that submitted and get it through the entire process. The federal process is complete, and now there's a state kind of inter-bureaucracy process, and I believe that that is all done too. So the Bureau of Rail had to category all of the equipment that they wanted to keep off of the rail. They've done that. They were supposed to send that to SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Office. SHPO was supposed to do a review. They did a complete review of the rail to figure out what historic components they wanted to keep, for example, switches. That's all been done. And so now the whole project is not a locally managed project. It will be a state managed project with the Bureau of Trails. And so next step, the Bureau of Trails will release a RFP to remove the rail, do any clearing and any other requirements that were required by the Bureau of Rail and SHPO. So, and we put some of our own needs in there. One of the other things was the actual funding of the project. So our funding was coming from Trails money and also Northern Borders. We had $110,000. We ran into an issue where in order for us since it's a state managed project, we had to amend our application with Northern Borders. We did that and created the Bureau of Trails as a co-applicant. That allowed us to transfer, which I don't know if that's actually happening, transfer funds to the project. And it also allowed us to apply for another Northern Borders grant because we're prohibited from applying for Northern Borders if we haven't spent I think it's 75 or 80% of the funds by this month.
It's 75. So,
yeah. So we have to pull another one before this out there.
I have a question on this report. I see a couple are close, and I understand why we're close to having used up the budget, but we're already 7.5% over our budget expenses for Parks and Rec. And I don't see a corresponding increase in revenues, so I'm curious what, how's that budget going to be managed for the next three months?
Yeah, I'll take a look at that. They could, sometimes what we'll do is we'll drill down and find expenses that say we're part of a grant project and we need reimbursed, or they can be miscategorized.
Okay.
So I'll look at that, see where that's coming from. I know that this summer is their highest expenses.
Yeah, no, I understand, but I thought maybe they'd have an increase in revenues because they were busier this summer too, but it doesn't appear to be the case.
I'll take a look at that.
Okay. Thanks for this, by the way. Before we leave, we're still in old business, right?
Yeah. Or you're getting an old business.
Before we leave, well, yeah, that's next after your town manager's report. I'm not sure if this comes up in old business, it doesn't matter where it comes up, but one thing I realized that we've not approved minutes in a long time. We need to get caught up. I'd like to see, if not three, at least two sets of minutes per meetings. I know we're not gonna get caught up all at once, that would be ridiculous to try. But if we can get 2 or 3 sets of minutes every meeting going forward, so we can get caught up with that.
Okay.
Thanks. Any other old business? All right, new business. Oktoberfest.
So I have, we've worked with our insurance and our attorney to come up with, this is really the first activity at the park, the riverfront park, or the Moreau parcel that the town leases. So
That's already been all developed, so we're already having events.
yeah, that's right. We're already having events. So we will be working on a community events policy that'll help establish a process for all of this, and then eventually we'll discuss how this parcel will be used. For example, is it a Parks and Rec parcel? Is it managed by the Parks and Rec Commission? But our events policy will be broad and help the future. So what we have is a sublease agreement, which is required by the insurance law, and to make sure that whoever we're leasing to actually holds up our end of the bargain for leasing from the property owner. So I have a lease here. The way that the attorneys drafted it would really be for the board to direct me to sign it. And it covers, I can just go over it really quick without getting the legalese. It grants the use of the property for $1 consideration. And this is for the Oktoberfest. So the one consideration could be that, the event is producing some kind of a benefit to the community. In this case, it's going to benefit our local church house, which is
So the event is for the benefit of the
the park.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So the lease itself will cover the parking lot, but the parking lot is going to be open to the public park. There will be a sign that says Oktoberfest parking, and then no one's required to pay. It's going to be by donation. So
All the donations go to the church.
all the donations go to the church house. It will be staffed by church house volunteers.
Great.
So that lease I don't actually have in front of me right now because there's some issue trying to figure out who it actually goes to. Was it Schilling who was holding up over that event, Littleton Main Street, or Birch House? And that all comes down to whoever's holding the insurance. So for example, what's the next one? The lease is actually with the chamber because the chamber holds the insurance. And we may alter that lease just to make sure that we're having on the correct party. Right now we have it as Littleton Main Street for the Oktoberfest. So $1 lease, they have significant insurance to protect the taxpayers. They indemnify the taxpayers from any potential issues if there's something that goes wrong during the event.
Do they indemnify the selectmen individually? I'm serious.
To the fullest extent of law, the subleasee shall protect and indemnify, save, defend, hold harmless the town of Littleton, including its officials, agents, volunteers, and employees. So that's good. And then it also holds them accountable to any of the parties that we lease from, Ron, Bureau, Trust, and then also compliance.
I assume he's aware of this already.
Yeah. Well, so he's done this for them in the past.
Yeah.
He would typically rent it to, I believe it would be either Main Street or Schilling for $250. Since we're just doing this new this year, we're saying let's do it for $1 and benefit the community. So then they're also required to comply with all state, local, federal regulations, and fire, police, public works, and myself have all received plans about the event and have gone over them with.
Have you guys approved what their plans are? You good? Fire and police?
As established now, yes.
And this is for the Oktoberfest event versus the
Oh, the concert?
yeah.
Oh, Oktoberfest, very little impact, it's all on their own property, and some increased foot of traffic, should be an issue.
Do we have the verbiage in there for, if something happens to the property, for instance, I can't think of anything off the top of my head, but obviously if you were leasing something, like the Opera House and something got damaged, that the leaser would be responsible for it.
Yes.
That's what the insurance is all about, right?
Yes, and I believe we spoke to condition of property in here. I know we discussed it with the attorney. But we would be able to use the insurance claim if it was a significant damage to the property. So that's for the Oktoberfest parking lot.
Oh, and that's what I was thinking, like littering and stuff like that. I mean, I assume that we tell them that it has to be, clean like way out there. It's okay to have all kinds of just random trash around there. I would assume that there's something in there that says
Would be returned clean. So if you don't have any objection, maybe you can make a motion to direct me to sign that.
Yeah, the only thing I want to make sure is that we're clear that we're doing that. This is kind of a new thing for us in that property, and we're clear that we don't have a fee schedule, anything like that in place, but we're willing to do this time for a buck. It's not that, we aren't setting policy that it's going to be free to use the space all the time.
Right.
Okay.
I'll make the motion to authorize Andrew to sign the lease for the Oktoberfest event.
Second.
All right. Any more discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay.
Can we do the second one as well?
Yeah. So the second one, very similar, art festival concert, not similar in its scope, but similar in that this is the first time what we're doing is a sublease. It's for a buck. Insurance, all of the requirements for that. This one required a little more of a plan. We reviewed the plan and communicated with the event organizers what our needs are. This event is likely to be anywhere from 500 to initial plans at 1,500. I know that the life safety code of the lot doesn't allow for 1,500, but that's the expectation. It's going to be the road parcel and the park. So, if you have any questions?
I'm going to have our own little Woodstock.
Possibly. I don't know what to expect. I don't know that anybody else does, and I think that this will be a good trial run.
You need a motion simulator. I'll make a motion that we approve Andrew to execute the lease agreement for the September 21st Art Festival concert river.
Second.
All right, any more discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And just a note, Jen McMahon, in his role as parking commission chair, we're talking about doing some kind of like a get the word out for the public to know that that weekend is a busy weekend. We have homecoming in the homecoming games, so whoever's coming from out of town or in town to see that in the homecoming event at the park. There's the art festival in the River District and this concert. And so, just a rough calculation, we'll be eliminating at least 60 parking spaces. If not, there's probably a lot more parking spaces that are going to be eliminated in town, and people can just plan ahead for that, be prepared to walk.
Yeah, because the art festival isn't going to be on Main Street on the sidewalk. It's going to be in the parking spaces
Oh, it
on
is.
Mill Street, correct.
Oh,
And so in front of the new spaces that were created, what's the park called? There's a memorial.
Oh, the Rotary Park?
Yeah, the Rotary
Centennial Park.
Centennial Park. So it'll be there. They're going to have the tents right there. And then event parking will be the Bank of New Hampshire parking spaces. And it looks like it'll be good, I think.
yeah, it's good.
Is the town responsible for mowing Centennial Park?
Depends on the section. So I think there's an issue right now with where we're at. We have a construction meeting coming up. We haven't been officially handed over the keys, if you will, for the Anderson Saranac project. And so the contractor themselves is responsible for certain things, and we want to just make sure that we don't do something and accidentally trigger some portion of the contract that we shouldn't have. But we'll make sure it looks as good as possible. Either way.
So do I need to bring my weed whacker down?
We might need some covert action.
It's due. It's due for mowing.
We'll talk about that after.
Yeah.
Okay, any other new business? I don't think we have any other new business. I guess we're ready to move on to the Board of Assessors meeting. This is pretty self-explanatory, but do we need is he making a presentation on this issue, on this item? Should I read it or what?
I would read that.
Do we need to officially open the board
As a separate
Word, selecting our other assessors. Okay, so we have a abatement request coming back to us, it appears, for 368 Union Street Realty Trust, tax map 79, lot 211. 368 Union Street, 2018 tax year abatement amount $582. The property is a conventional home on .2 acres that is gutted and is vacant. The abatement request was originally denied because of lack of information provided. After meeting with the taxpayers, it was found that there were physical data errors in the description of the property. It is recommended an abatement in the amount of $512.82 be granted. So I think I remember this, we just blew right by it because there was no information provided.
Right.
Okay. Do you want to,
Do you want to do both of them, or do you want to do them individually?
these two, oh, this is, yeah, we may as well go through both of them, the same property, right?
No, it's different
Oh,
properties.
no, it's a different property, well, let's do them individually.
Same owner.
Yeah, let's do them individually then.
Make a motion that we approve the abatement for, was it tax map 79-211? In the amount of, what is it, $512.82.
I'll second it.
All right, any more discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, another property for 368 Union Street Realty Trust, tax map 67 lot 35, 270 Pleasant Street. 2018 tax year abatement amount $97.02. The property is a conventional home on .11 acres. It was found that there were physical data errors in the description of the property. After making the corrections, it recommended an abatement in the amount of $97.02 be granted.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
All right, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, that's unanimous. So, unless we have anything to go into, oh, now public comments, I almost forgot. Any other public comments? That's easy. We don't have anything to go into non-public for. All right, meeting was in. You all right?
All right.